Welcome back to the Roberta Show, a space for real conversations, real growth, and real transformation. I'm your host, Roberta Tabb, the Affirmation Architect, and today I want to ask you a question that sounds simple. But for many people, it's one of the hardest questions they'll ever answer honestly. The question is, what do you actually want? Not what your family wants for you. Not what society tells you should make you happy. Not what looks good on social media. Not what feels safe. What do you want? Because I think a lot of people are walking around frustrated, disconnected, and unfulfilled for one reason. They've never been honest about what they truly want. Or they know exactly what they want, but they're afraid to admit it. And until you get honest with yourself, it's impossible to move in alignment with your life. Part 1. You can't create clarity without honesty. One of the biggest reasons people feel stuck is because they're constantly trying to make decisions without first getting clear on what they actually want. They spend years asking, what should I do? What's the right choice? Which path should I take? But they're asking the wrong question. The first question should always be, what do I want? Because clarity doesn't come from looking outside of yourself. It comes from being honest with yourself. And honesty can be uncomfortable. Because sometimes what you want doesn't match what other people expect from you. Sometimes what you want requires change. Sometimes what you want means admitting that you've outgrown something. Something like a relationship, a job, a previous version of yourself, or a dream that no longer fits. And that's where many people stop, not because they don't know the truth, but because the truth feels inconvenient. Part 2. The fear of wanting more. Let's talk about something many people don't admit. Sometimes we're afraid to want more. Not because we don't deserve it, but because wanting more creates responsibility. The moment you admit what you really want, you can no longer pretend you don't know. You can no longer hide behind confusion, and you can no longer blame uncertainty. Now you have a choice to make. And that's scary. Because what if you fail? What if people don't understand? Or what if it doesn't work out? So instead, many people stay attached to the safety of indecision because uncertainty feels less risky than action. But here's what I've learned. The truth doesn't go away just because you ignore it. That dream, that desire, that calling, that next chapter, it keeps showing up again, and again until you're willing to acknowledge it. Part 3. Stop lying to yourself. This may be the most important part of today's conversation. Sometimes we know exactly what we want. We're just telling ourselves stories to avoid it. Stories like, I'm not ready, it's too late, I'm too old, I'm not qualified, maybe next year, and maybe someday. But if we're being honest, how many of those stories are actually true? And how many are fear trying to protect you from discomfort? I think one of the most powerful things you can do is sit down with yourself and ask, what am I pretending not to know? Because the answer to that question can change your life. Deep down, most people already know. You know what's no longer working. You know what's draining you. You know what needs to change. You know what you desire. The problem isn't lack of clarity. The problem is lack of honesty. Lack of honesty with yourself. Part 4. Giving yourself permission. Once you get honest, the next step is permission. The permission to want what you want. Permission to evolve. Permission to dream bigger. Permission to change your mind, and the permission to pursue a life that feels aligned with who you are becoming. Because here's the truth. You don't need anyone else's approval to want more for your life. I'll say that again. You don't need anyone else's approval to want more for your life. You do not need permission to grow. You do not need permission to choose differently. You only need the courage to be honest. And maybe that's what alignment really is. Not becoming someone new, but finally admitting what your heart has been trying to tell you all along. Because when you're honest about what you want, you stop wandering. You stop settling and you stop living according to everyone else's expectations. And you begin creating a life that actually feels like yours. Welcome to your affirmation work. Take a deep breath and repeat these affirmations slowly. Really allow yourself to believe them. I am honest with myself about what I truly want. My desires matter. I trust myself enough to tell the truth. I release the fear of wanting more. I am allowed to evolve. I am allowed to change direction. I no longer shrink my dreams to make others comfortable. I trust myself to pursue what is meant for me. I deserve a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. I choose honesty over fear. I choose alignment over approval. Set with those for a while. Now let's check your alignment. Ask yourself, what am I pretending not to know about what I truly want? The truth is, the answers you're seeking may already exist within you. Here's this week's action. Spend 15 uninterrupted minutes journaling this week. No filters and no expectations. Simply answer one question. If fear wasn't involved, what would I choose? As always, thank you for spending this time with me today. And remember, you cannot create an aligned life while avoiding your truth. The moment you get honest about what you want, everything begins to change. I'll see you in the next episode of The Roberta Show.